Thunder rolled across the sky, its roar chasing villagers into their homes. Doors slammed shut, and faint lamplight flickered behind tightly drawn curtains. Hushed voices rose and fell within the huts, whispering tales of an ancient curse. Outside, the wind carried whispers, twisting and circling the mighty baobab tree that stood like a sentinel at the edge of the village. Under its shadow, she stood, her breath caught as her gaze fixed on the impossible. A figure, its movements fluid and otherworldly, danced in silence beneath the tree's sprawling branches. Each step seemed to ripple through the ground, pulling the shadows toward it like waves on a tide. "It's the Adze," a voice carried faintly through the wind. The legend was known to all. It danced for souls, marking them for death. The dancer twirled once more, then dissolved into the dark, leaving only the stillness of the cursed tree. She stood frozen, the chill of dread creeping up her spine. Her name was often whispered in the same hushed tones as the curse. To some, she was the gifted seer who guided the village through sickness and drought. To others, she was the harbinger of doom, a woman whose visions brought only death. The whispers grew louder as she turned away from the tree, retreating to her small, weathered hut. Her chest tightened, her thoughts consumed by what she had seen. The vision lingered, a warning she could not yet decipher. The whispers followed her into the quiet of her home. This time, they were not from the villagers. Low, disembodied murmurs surrounded her, faint words she could not understand, but felt in her bones. A calamity was coming, and it would not spare anyone. A sudden knock at the door shattered the air. It came fast, panicked, followed by the voice of a young boy calling her name. She opened the door to find him breathless, his face pale. "The chief," he said, his voice trembling. "He's collapsed. They sent me to get you." Her pulse quickened. The villagers sought her aid only when desperation outweighed their fear of her. She hesitated at the threshold, torn between duty and the knowledge that blame would fall on her if the chief did not recover. Her eyes flicked toward the baobab tree in the distance. Lightning flashed, illuminating its looming shape against the storm. Its shadow seemed alive, its roots digging deeper into the earth as if hiding secrets that refused to be unearthed. Another rumble of thunder, another wave of whispers, now clearer, sharper. They urged her forward, warning her that turning away would invite even greater disaster. With a deep breath, she grabbed her satchel and stepped into the storm. The wind howled and the rain began to fall, but she moved with resolve. Whatever trials lay ahead, she would face them. Beneath the storm's fury and the tree's unyielding shadow, she knew one thing. The secrets of the night would not remain hidden for long. The whispers had begun to grow louder, filling the spaces between. The crashing thunder and the rustling leaves. She sat quietly, clutching the worn charm her grandmother had once given her. Her words still echoed. The spirits show the path, but only the brave follow it. The weight of the village's fear pressed heavily on her shoulders. Her thoughts, twisted between the visions she had seen and the knowing glances of those who would sooner call her a curse than a savior. "They will blame you if the chief dies." The voice was low and sharp, cutting through the storm of her thoughts. She turned to find the old woman standing in the doorway. There was no malice in her tone, only a warning. "And if I do nothing, they will still blame you." The answer sat like a stone in her chest. She looked toward the horizon, where the baobab tree stood against the storm. Its shadow seemed to stretch further, its roots digging into the earth like claws. The village thrived on tradition. Rituals dictated the rhythms of their lives, and the elders guarded their secrets as fiercely as mothers guarded their children. When the chief fell ill, it was the elders who led the murmured prayers, the chants rising and falling in the cool air. The smoke of incense curled skyward, carrying their pleas to the ancestors. But beneath the prayers, fear festered. "It is a curse," someone whispered, "or the spirits are angry." The villagers nodded, their faces lined with worry. They spoke in hushed tones, careful not to let their words carry too far. They remembered the stories, the warnings of what happened when the spirits were crossed. The fire crackled, casting long shadows across the circle of faces. An elder, his voice worn but steady, began to speak. "The Adze dances in the night," he said. "Its steps mark the souls it claims. Under the baobab it waits." The villagers shuddered. They had heard the tale many times before, but it felt different now, closer. The elder's words carried weight, and no one dared to dismiss them. "If it is here," a voice broke through the silence. "Who brought it?" The question lingered unanswered, as all eyes drifted toward the same figure. Her silence only deepened their suspicion. They spoke of her visions in tones that danced, between awe and fear. "She knew the rains would come late last season," someone murmured. "And she knew about the sickness in the next village," added another. "But what else has she seen?" They didn't ask her directly. They never did. Their accusations were whispers, carried on the wind, but always loud enough to reach her ears. The blood. She could still see it, even with her eyes open. Her vision had shown the village in chaos, the earth soaked red and the people fighting each other. It wasn't just death. It was destruction, the kind that tore apart everything it touched. She had tried to push it away, to tell herself it was only a warning, not a certainty. But the unease in her chest told her otherwise. The hunter was a man of action, not words. He approached her with a furrowed brow and a quiet intensity. "They vanish," he said simply. "What vanishes?" "The footprints. They circle the tree, but they lead nowhere." He held out a handful of soil, dark and heavy. "This isn't from the surface. Something's been digging, something unnatural." Her heart quickened. The tree, the vision, the whispers, they were all connected. The spirits didn't speak in words. They spoke in the rustle of leaves, in the way the wind shifted, in the moments of stillness that felt like a held breath. She could feel them now, pressing against her, urging her to act. But act how? The visions were riddles, pieces of a puzzle she couldn't yet see. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the noise of her thoughts, but the whispers only grew louder. The villagers were restless. The chief's illness had worsened and the chants had begun to falter. "We need answers," someone demanded. Others nodded, their desperation turning to frustration. They looked to the elders, then to each other. Their gazes finally landed on her. "If she knows something, she should speak," a voice said, louder than the rest. Another nodded. "The spirits speak to her. She should know how to stop this." Their words were edged with anger, and she could feel it rising, like the first sparks of a fire waiting to catch. Her hands tightened around the charm as she stepped forward. The wind howled, carrying the cries of the restless spirits, but her voice was steady. "I will find the answers you seek," she said. The words silenced the crowd, if only for a moment. The storm raged on, but her path had become clear. The chief's labored breathing echoed in the silence, a stark reminder of his fragile state. The elder's prayers grew louder, desperate, but the illness only tightened its grip. Whispers rippled through the village like wind through dry grass. Fear spread as more fell ill, clutching their stomachs and crying out in pain. "It's spreading," someone said. Another voice trembled. "What if we're all cursed?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. She crouched low, examining the dirt outside the hut of one of the afflicted. The earth felt cold under her fingers. Her gaze lifted toward the baobab tree in the distance. A pattern had begun to emerge, one she couldn't ignore. "They all went there," she said. "Before this." The hunter's voice broke the stillness. "I found something." He knelt by the tree, brushing aside loose soil to reveal the objects. Buried beneath, a crude figurine, knotted strings, and ash smeared the ground. His face hardened. These don't belong here. Her breath quickened. Someone put them here on purpose. The hunter straightened. Who would dare? And why? The idea questions burned in her mind. The murmurs began slowly, then grew louder. Fingers pointed and suspicious glances turned her way. She knows more than she's saying, one voice accused. She speaks to the spirits, another added. Perhaps she called this upon us. Her chest tightened. She said nothing, knowing that any defense would fall on deaf ears. The old woman leaned in close, her voice low and urgent. They will turn on you if you're not careful. Her hand rested on hers, trembling but firm. Be cautious, child. Fear makes people dangerous. The warning was clear, but her path was set. His voice carried over the crowd, smooth and sharp. Is it not strange that the sickness began after her last vision? Heads turned as the nephew of the chief stepped forward, his arms raised. Perhaps the spirits are angry because someone has meddled where they should not. A murmur of agreement followed. Can we afford to trust her? Or is she hiding something from us? She met his gaze, unflinching. The girl tugged at her sleeve. Her voice was small but steady. I saw them. She knelt, her eyes level with the girls. Saw who? They were dancing, the girl said. Under the tree, shadows. But they weren't people. Her heart raced. You're sure? The girl nodded. They whispered, but I couldn't hear the words. She picked up the broken charm, its pieces scattered on the ground. Her hands trembled as she traced the markings. These were meant to protect the village, she said. The hunter frowned. Who would break them? Someone who wants the spirit's wrath to grow, she replied. Someone from within. The villagers gathered in the square, their voices rising in fear and anger. We must act, one man shouted. Another pointed toward the forest. Banish anyone who dares cross the spirits. The elders exchanged worried glances. Their authority, slipping in the chaos. We need a sacrifice, a voice whispered. She stood beneath the baobab, her fists clenched. The whispers surrounded her, growing louder. Then it appeared, the spectral dancer, its movements slow and deliberate. Why are you here? She demanded. It twirled, silent and graceful, its form shimmering like smoke. What do you want from us? The figure stopped, tilting its head. The dancer's voice was neither loud nor soft, but carried weight that pierced the air. Betrayal walks among you, it said. Her breath caught. Who? Tell me who it is. It spun once more. The one who wears two faces will lead to your end. She reached out, but the figure dissolved into the night. She returned to the village, her steps heavy with purpose. The hunter waited, his face tense. What did it say? Her voice was steady. It's someone here, someone who hides their true face. His jaw tightened. How will you find them? She looked toward the square, where the villagers still muttered and pointed. By listening and watching. The whispers grew louder, but so did her resolve. The air was thick with tension as they gathered beneath the ancient tree. Her voice was steady, though her eyes betrayed the weight of the moment. She turned to the hunter and the old woman by her side, their faces marked by resolve. Behind them, a handful of villagers stepped forward, fear evident in their hesitant movements. We face it together, she said. The tree loomed above, its shadow long and unyielding. The hunter crouched, brushing away the dirt at the base of the tree. His hand stopped on something cold and unnatural. He pulled it free, a bundle of knotted cords, bones, and ash. This is no accident, he said. The old woman's voice cut through the murmurs. These are marks of forbidden rituals. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the group. Voice rose from the crowd. Lies! None of this is true. All eyes turned to the nephew of the chief. His face was a mask of anger, but his words were smooth. These accusations are baseless. Do you think I would harm my own uncle? He stepped forward, his tone sharper. If anyone has brought this curse, look to her. She's the one who dances with spirits. The murmurs grew louder, doubt spreading like wildfire. Her eyes flashed, and she raised her hand. Enough! The crowd fell silent as she stepped forward. Her voice carried power, each word deliberate. You've hidden in shadows, but the spirits see all. I see all. She closed her eyes and the vision returned. The nephew's hands stained with ash, his voice chanting words forbidden by the elders. You sought power, even if it meant destroying your own people, she said, her eyes locking onto his. His mask slipped, and his defiance faltered. Chaos erupted as his loyalists rushed forward, shouting accusations and defending their leader. The villagers splintered, some demanding justice while others hesitated, unsure of the truth. A hand reached for her, but the hunter pulled her back. Stay focused, he said. The old woman raised her staff, her voice cutting through the noise. Enough of this madness. Do you not see the destruction your fear is bringing? Amid the chaos, she knelt at the base of the tree. Her hands moved with purpose, drawing symbols into the dirt. Her voice rose in a chant, calling to the spirits. The wind shifted, growing colder. The crowd froze as a low hum filled the air. She didn't stop. Her voice grew louder, commanding as the symbols glowed faintly in the darkness. The hum turned into a whisper, then a roar. The spectral dancer appeared, its form flickering like a flame. It moved with grace, stepping between the villagers, who shrank back in fear. Behold your fear, the voice said. The dancer's form shifted, taking on the faces of the villagers, their eyes wide with guilt and shame. Your divisions feed the Adze, it said. Your mistrust gives it power. The symbols at her feet flared brightly. Her voice rose above the roar of the wind. Enough! The dancer stilled, its form breaking apart like smoke caught in a storm. The villagers watched as the light pulsed, then faded, leaving only silence. The weight that had hung over them lifted, and the air felt clean for the first time in weeks. She stood, her body trembling but her voice steady. The old woman stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. The hunter spoke. It's over. You've done it. She shook her head. Not yet. Her gaze lifted to the tree. The spirit stirred once more, and her vision sharpened. She saw herself standing at the head of the village, the chief's staff in her hand. The old woman smiled knowingly. The spirits have chosen. The villagers looked to her, their eyes wide with shock. For a moment there was silence, then murmurs of agreement. She saved us, someone said. Another voice followed. Perhaps she is meant to lead. Beneath the baobab they stood together. The divisions that had torn them apart began to fade as they spoke of rebuilding, of healing. She looked to the hunter and the old woman, her allies in the darkness. Together, she said, and under the tree that had once been a symbol of fear, the seeds of unity began to grow. The chief sat silently, his frail hands resting on the staff that once symbolized his strength. His voice, though weak, carried the weight of finality. I have served long enough. The spirits demand change, and I must listen. The staff slipped from his grasp and landed at her feet. The spirits have chosen you. Will you accept? Her gaze shifted to the villagers, their faces a mixture of hope and hesitation. Why me? Because you are the only one who listens. The words echoed in her mind. She reached down, her fingers brushing the smooth wood of the staff. With a deep breath, she lifted it, the weight heavier than she imagined. The villagers gathered in the square, their murmurs louder than usual. They watched as the hunter stood at the center, his voice clear and firm. Io has betrayed us all. There is no place for him here. Ayo's protests rang hollow, his words drowned by the crowd's anger. 2 men stepped forward, guiding him to the edge of the village. "Let this be the end of his schemes," someone muttered. "May the ancestors forgive him," another added. As the sound of Ayo's footsteps faded, the tension in the air began to lift. She sat by the old woman's resting place, the earth still fresh and damp. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the familiar voice of her ally. "You were stronger than I ever was." Her chest tightened. She placed a small charm on the grave, one the old woman had always carried. "I couldn't have done it without you." The silence that followed was comforting, as if the old woman's spirit remained close. The hunter approached her as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the village. His steps were steady, his face calm. "This is only the beginning," he said. She nodded. "It will take time. You won't do it alone." She met his gaze, the faintest hint of a smile on her lips. "I know." The fire crackled in the center of the village. Elders and children alike gathered around, their voices rising in unison. The air was thick with the scent of burning herbs, the smoke spiraling upward like a prayer. She stepped forward, holding a bowl of water laced with leaves and ash. One by one, she poured a small amount into each pair of outstretched hands. "Let this cleanse our past," she said, "and clear the path ahead." The villagers nodded, their movements careful and reverent. The tree stood tall and silent, its branches no longer casting foreboding shadows. Children played beneath it, their laughter breaking through the stillness. An elder watched them, a faint smile on his weathered face. "The tree has seen so much. It is fitting that it now sees joy." She stood nearby, her staff planted firmly in the ground. She watched the children, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Voices of forgiveness mingled with laughter. Feuds dissolved as hands were extended, hesitant at first but soon firm. "We were wrong to doubt you," one voice said. Another added, "You have shown us the way." She raised a hand, silencing them gently. "It is not me, it is us. Together, we can heal what was broken." As the villagers dispersed, the hunter approached her once more. "What now?" She looked toward the horizon, the sky painted in hues of orange and gold. "Now we rebuild. Together." The hunter nodded, his expression resolute. Under the baobab, the village began anew. The air carried the scent of change, and the future felt bright, even against the weight of their past. The memory of Ayo's desperate face lingered, etched in her mind like the lines of an old map. His hunger for power had been his undoing, tearing apart what little trust the village had left. She shook her head, the weight of his choices heavy on her heart. Selfish ambition, she thought, was a fire that consumed everything it touched, her. Gaze lifted to the villagers gathered around the baobab tree. Where fear had once ruled, there was now something new, togetherness. They had stood as one in their darkest hour, driven by a shared will to survive. She had seen strength in their unity, a force more powerful than any curse. Her thoughts turned inward. She had walked through shadows, confronted what many would have fled. Fear was an unyielding tide, but facing it had uncovered truths she hadn't been ready to see. Each step closer to the unknown had brought her closer to clarity. The staff in her hand felt lighter now, its meaning clearer. Leadership was not a crown to wear or a throne to sit upon. It was a duty, a promise to serve, even when voices whispered against her. The journey had taught her that to lead was to shoulder the burdens of many, even when they doubted her. She looked up at the baobab tree, its branches stretching wide like open arms. What had once been a symbol of dread now stood as a beacon of hope. Beneath it, life stirred. Children laughed and chased each other where shadows had once danced. Their joy was light breaking through the cracks of a long night. She smiled, her chest swelling with a quiet pride. The storm had passed, but its lessons remained, etched into the fabric of the village. Trust, courage, and community, they were the roots that would hold them firm against any future trial. She let her eyes roam over the faces of those around her, each one etched with a story of survival. A vision began to form, not of fear or blood, but of a future where harmony and resilience flourished. The pain of the past would not be forgotten, but it would guide them. She knelt, her hands brushing the cool earth at the base of the tree. "We honor you," she whispered. The ancestors had carried them through, and she would not let their traditions fade. She would weave the old ways into the new, ensuring the spirits were never forgotten. Standing tall once more, she planted the staff firmly in the ground. Each challenge had been a step forward, a lesson carved into her spirit. The journey was far from over, but she was ready. The wind whispered through the leaves above, carrying the promise of growth. As she looked towards the horizon, the baobab stood behind her, a silent witness to the new chapter unfolding.